My name's Jenny, and I've been a cardiologist for over 2 decades now. Life's thrown its fair share of curveballs at me, but I've managed to catch most of them. Well, except for that disaster of a marriage I got myself into. I met Tom when I was fresh out of med school. He was charming, funny, and seemed like the perfect guy to start a family with. My parents, though? They hated him from day one. "Jenny, you're making a mistake," my mom would say, shaking her head. "That man's trouble." But did I listen? I was young and in love, or so I thought. We got married, and for a while, things were good. We had 2 beautiful kids, and I thought we had it all figured out. Then the drinking started. At first, it was just a beer or two after work. Then it became a 6-pack. Before I knew it, Tom was stumbling home at 2 a.m., reeking of booze, and God knows what else. "Where the hell have you been?" I'd ask, trying to keep my voice down so I wouldn't wake the kids. "None of your damn business," he'd slur, pushing past me to collapse on the couch. I tried to make it work, I really did. For the kids, you know? But after years of broken promises and drunken rages, I'd had enough. I packed up the kids and left. My parents? They weren't exactly supportive. "You made your bed, Jenny," my dad said coldly when I called to tell them. "Now lie in it." That hurt. But what hurt more was watching them dote on my younger sister, Sarah. She was always their favorite, even when we were kids. 10 years younger than me, Sarah was the baby of the family, and boy, did they spoil her rotten. I remember when I got accepted into med school. I was over the moon, but when I asked my parents for help with tuition, they shut me down. "We're saving that money for Sarah's future," my mom said, not even looking me in the eye. "You'll figure something out, Jenny. You always do." And figure it out I did. My grandparents, bless their hearts, stepped up and helped me out. Without them, I wouldn't be where I am today. So there I was, divorced with 2 kids to support. But you know what? I made it work. I threw myself into my career, worked my ass off, and managed to provide a good life for my kids. Funny thing is, even when I was doing well, my parents still couldn't see past Sarah. She became a teacher, married some hotshot businessman, and suddenly she was the golden child all over again. Life has a funny way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. I thought I'd seen it all, but nothing could have prepared me for what happened when my parents passed away. I was the one who organized the funeral. Sarah? She was living it up in Hawaii with her businessman husband. Typical. I spent days arranging everything, from the flowers to the catering, all while dealing with my own grief. The day after the funeral, I headed to the notary's office. I wasn't expecting much, given how my parents had always favored Sarah, but what I heard left me speechless. "I'm sorry, Dr. Kirby," the notary said, adjusting his glasses. "But your parents will leave everything to your sister Sarah. You're not mentioned at all." I left the office in a daze. Years of putting up with their criticism, of working my ass off to make them proud, and this was what I got. Nothing. When I finally got hold of Sarah on Skype, her smug face said it all. "Oh, Jenny," she cooed, not even trying to hide her glee. "I'm sure Mom and Dad had their reasons. You understand, don't you?" I wanted to scream, to reach through the screen and shake her. Instead, I just ended the call. After that, our conversations became few and far between. A Merry Christmas here, a Happy Birthday there. That was it. The only time I saw my nephews was through a screen, and even then, what I saw worried me. During one Skype call, I watched in disbelief as Alex demanded ice cream from Sarah. "Mommy, I want ice cream now," he yelled. "Sweetie, it's almost dinner time," Sarah replied weakly. "I don't care. I want it now." To my shock, Sarah got up and fetched him the ice cream. "There you go, darling. Anything for my little prince." I couldn't help myself. "Sarah, don't you think you should set some boundaries?" She rolled her eyes. "Oh, Jenny, not this again. I'm raising my children to be free spirits. I don't want them to have the kind of trauma we had growing up. And just like that, the call ended. Despite all this drama, I managed to carve out a pretty good life for myself. I had a nice apartment in a good neighborhood, my kids were grown and doing well on their own, and I had my faithful companion, Buddy, a little Yorkie who never failed to brighten my day. After a long day at the hospital, there was nothing better than coming home to Buddy's excited yips and wagging tail. We'd curl up on the couch, me with a glass of wine and him with his favorite chew toy, and I'd feel at peace. "It's just you and me against the world, Buddy?" I'd say, scratching behind his ears. Life was good, quiet, but good. I had my work, my dog, my cozy home. I thought I had it all figured out. It was a quiet Tuesday evening when my life got turned upside down. I had just settled on the couch with Buddy, ready to unwind after a grueling 12-hour shift at the hospital. Then came the knock. I opened the door to find Sarah, mascara streaked down her face, with Alex and Timmy in tow. "Jenny, thank God you're home," she blurted out, barging past me. "We need a place to stay." Before I could even process what was happening, the boys had already torn into my living room like a pair of tornadoes. "Whoa, hold on," I said, trying to corral them. "What's going on, Sarah?" She flopped dramatically onto my couch. "I had a fight with Robert. I'm teaching that bastard a lesson. Boys, say hi to your Aunt Jenny." But Alex and Timmy were too busy to acknowledge me. Alex had grabbed my remote and was changing channels at lightning speed, while Timmy had dumped the contents of his backpack all over my freshly vacuumed carpet. "Hey, guys," I tried, raising my voice slightly. "How about we calm down a bit?" Sarah's head snapped up. "Don't you dare yell at my children, Jenny." I blinked, stunned. I wasn't yelling, I was just. "Cool it, Aunt Jenny," Alex sneered, not taking his eyes off the TV. "Mom says we can do what we want." I looked at Sarah, expecting her to correct him. Instead, she just shrugged. "They're expressing themselves." Over the next few days, my peaceful apartment transformed into what I can only describe as a war zone. Toys littered every surface. My walls, once a soothing cream, now sported colorful artwork courtesy of Timmy's crayons. One evening, I came home to find my prized floor vase, a gift from a grateful patient, in pieces on the floor. "What happened here?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Alex shrugged. "It was in our way." I looked at Sarah, who was, as usual, glued to her phone. "Sarah, don't you think the boys should apologize?" She barely glanced up. "Jenny, they're just being kids. Stop being so uptight." The final straw came when I heard a crash from the living room, followed by the unmistakable sound of shattering glass. I rushed in to find my TV face down on the floor, and a baseball-sized hole in my window. "That's it," I snapped. "Sarah, we need to talk. Now." I pulled her into the kitchen, away from the boys. "This can't go on. If you're staying here, there need to be rules. I can't have them destroying my home. They need discipline. If you will provide it, I will." "Don't you dare," Sarah hissed. "You have no right to parent my children. I forbid you from raising your voice at them or making them do anything they don't want to do." I stared at her, dumbfounded. "Sarah, they're out of control. They need guidance. What they need," she cut me off, "is freedom to express themselves without judgment. I won't let you traumatize them like our parents did to us." As she stormed off, I looked around my once peaceful home. Broken items, scattered toys, crayon-covered walls. This wasn't expression. This was chaos. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, they did. It was a Wednesday afternoon, and I was rushing home from the hospital, praying that my apartment was still standing. As I fumbled for my keys, I felt a bony hand grab my arm. "Dr. Kirby, Jenny, Mrs. Johnson, my elderly neighbor," hissed. Her face was red with anger. "We need to talk now." Before I could protest, she was dragging me down the stairs and out the back door of our building. Strewn across the ground beneath my windows was a sea of garbage. toys, food wrappers, even some of my medical journals. It looked like a landfill had exploded. Your nephews, Mrs. Johnson spat, have been throwing things at passers-by. For fun. I felt the blood drain from my face. Mrs. Johnson, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. And the noise, she continued, her voice rising. All day long, it's screaming and shouting and God knows what else. I can't even hear my television. I stood there, mortified. Mrs. Johnson and I had always gotten along so well. She'd even watched Buddy for me when I had to work late. Now, she looked at me like I was public enemy number one. If this doesn't stop, she said, jabbing a finger at my chest, I'm calling the authorities. I mean it, Jenny, this is unacceptable. As soon as Mrs. Johnson went back inside, I stormed up to my apartment. I burst through the door to find Alex and Timmy sprawled on the couch, playing video games. Both of you, downstairs, now, I said, my voice low and dangerous. You're going to clean up every single thing you threw out that window. Right now. Alex barely looked up, but we don't wanna. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my cool. Listen to me very carefully. If you don't clean up that mess right now, I'm calling the police and telling them exactly what you've been up to. Your choice. Their eyes went wide. For the first time since they'd arrived, they actually looked scared. Without another word, they scrambled off the couch and headed for the door. I supervised as they picked up every scrap of garbage. It took over an hour, but by the end, the area was spotless. As we headed back upstairs, I laid down the law. If I ever catch you throwing anything out of a window again, I said, you'll be in serious trouble. Understand? They nodded silently, looking suitably chastened. I thought maybe, just maybe, we'd turned a corner. Then Sarah came home. What's this I hear about you threatening my children? She shrieked, slamming the door behind her. I tried to explain about Mrs. Johnson, about the garbage, about the risk of someone getting hurt. But Sarah wasn't having any of it. You cruel, heartless scum, she spat. You're just like Mom and Dad, always trying to control everyone. Well, I won't let you traumatize my children like they traumatized us. As she stormed off to comfort Alex and Timmy, who were now crying crocodile tears, I slumped against the wall. How had my quiet, orderly life turned into such a nightmare? That day started like any other in this new, chaotic reality I was living in. Another long shift at the hospital, another dreaded return to what used to be my sanctuary. But as I opened the door, I immediately sensed something was wrong. Buddy? I called out, expecting to hear the familiar click of his nails on the hardwood floor. Nothing. I searched every room, my heart racing. Buddy, here, boy. Still nothing. Panic started to set in. I found Alex and Timmy in the living room, engrossed in their video games as usual. Have you seen Buddy? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Alex shrugged without looking up. Oh yeah, that yappy thing was annoying us, so we opened the door and shooed it away. I don't remember exactly what I said next. I know I yelled. I know I cried. The next thing I knew, I was running down the street, calling Buddy's name until my throat was raw. Buddy, please, boy, where are you? Tears streamed down my face as I searched. All I could think about was Buddy, scared and alone, possibly hurt, or worse. The thought of him lying somewhere, hit by a car. I couldn't bear it. I was about to call the police when my phone rang. An unfamiliar number. Hello? I answered, my voice shaking. Is this Dr. Jenny Kirby? A kind voice asked. We're calling from City Animal Shelter. We found a dog that we believe belongs to you. We were able to scan his microchip and get your information. I rushed to the shelter, tears of relief replacing my tears of fear. When I saw Buddy, safe and sound, I scooped him up and held him close, promising him I'd never let anything bad happen to him again. Back at the apartment, I was ready for a showdown. I found Sarah sprawled on the couch, engrossed in her phone as usual. We need to talk, I said, my voice hard. Do you have any idea what your boys did today? They kicked Buddy out onto the street. He could have been killed, Sarah. She rolled her eyes. Oh, relax. It's just a dog. I stared at her, dumbfounded. Sarah, Buddy is family. Your boys need to be punished for this. And for everything else they've done. This apartment is a disaster. Things are broken. It's a mess. Not my problem, Sarah cut me off, still tapping away at her phone. It's your apartment, you clean it. I felt something snap inside me. That's it, I've had enough. You need to get your act together, Sarah. Start parenting your children, or what? She sneered, finally looking up at me. You'll kick us out? Go ahead. I'm sure Child Services would love to hear about how you abused your poor, homeless sister and her children. I stood there, speechless. This wasn't my sister. This manipulative, uncaring woman couldn't be the same girl I grew up with. As I watched her turn back to her phone, dismissing me entirely, I realized something had to change. The next morning, I arrived at the hospital early, my mind racing. I hadn't slept well, plagued by thoughts of Buddy's close call and Sarah's indifference. Before my first patient arrived, I decided to make a call I probably should have made weeks ago. I dialed Robert's number, hoping he'd pick up. On the third ring, he answered. Robert, I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to understand what's going on. Sarah showed up at my door weeks ago, saying you two had a fight. When is she planning to come home? There was a long pause, then a heavy sigh. Jenny, I'm sorry, but Sarah's not coming home. I've filed for divorce. What followed was a litany of revelations that left me reeling. Robert's voice cracked as he poured out the whole sorry tale. She quit her teaching job years ago, Jenny. Said she was too stressed. But she doesn't do anything at home either. The house is a disaster, the kids run wild, and she's always on that damn phone. I closed my eyes, remembering the state of my own apartment. I've noticed, I said quietly. She told me it was my job to support her, Robert continued. Said I should hire a housekeeper, a nanny. That she deserved to enjoy life. And then she started taking these vacations. Alone. Using the money from your parents' will. I thought she just needed some time to herself, you know? But then I found out. Jenny, she was cheating on me. Multiple times, with different men. I felt like I'd been doused with ice water. Oh, Robert, I breathed. I'm so sorry. His voice broke. I did DNA tests on the boys. Thank God they're mine, but I just can't do it anymore, Jenny. I kicked her out. I feel terrible about the boys, but I just couldn't. As Robert's voice faded into quiet sobs, I sat there, stunned. Robert, I said finally, I'm so sorry you've been through all this. Thank you for telling me. After we hung up, I leaned back in my chair, the full weight of the situation hitting me. Sarah wasn't here for a short stay. She wasn't teaching her husband a lesson. She was here because she had nowhere else to go. The realization that this might be a long-term arrangement made my head spin. How was I supposed to handle this? My tiny apartment wasn't meant for 4 people. My orderly life wasn't equipped for the chaos Sarah and her boys brought with them. But as I thought about Alex and Timmy, I felt a pang of sympathy. They were just kids, acting out because they'd never been taught any better. And now their family was falling apart. That evening, I steeled myself for what I knew would be a difficult conversation. I found Sarah lounging on the couch, scrolling through her phone as usual. Sarah, we need to talk, I said, my voice firm. I spoke with Robert today. He told me everything. About the divorce, about your affairs, about how you've been living. Sarah shrugged, turning back to her phone. So what? It's true. I'm divorcing that loser. I'm tired of him. I stared at her, dumbfounded. That's all you have to say? Sarah, you've turned your whole life upside down. What about the boys? They'll be fine, she said dismissively. That's what sisters are for, right? You have to help us. The casual way she said it, as if my support was a given, made my blood boil. I don't have to do anything, Sarah. You can't just expect me to pick up the pieces of your life. Oh, come on, she scoffed. It's not like you have anything better to do. No husband, no life outside work. Besides, Mom and Dad left me all that money. I can afford to take some time for myself. The mention of our parents will reopen old wounds. Speaking of that money, Sarah. Where is it? Because from what I can see, you're broke. She waved her hand dismissively. Oh, that? There were just crumbs left anyway. I felt my jaw drop. Crumbs? Sarah, they left you over $300,000. Yeah, and have you seen how expensive vacations are these days? She rolled her eyes as if I was the unreasonable one. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the rage building inside me. Listen to me very carefully, Sarah. This ends now. Either you start taking responsibility for your children and find a job, or you need to find somewhere else to live. You have 2 days to start making changes. I'd like to say that conversation was a turning point, that Sarah saw the error of her ways and decided to step up. But life isn't a fairy tale, and my sister, it seemed, was far past the point of redemption. 2 days later, I came home from a particularly grueling shift at the hospital. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. Alex and Timmy were sitting on the couch, looking lost and upset. Boys, where's your mom? I asked, a sense of dread creeping over me. Timmy wordlessly pointed to a note on the coffee table. With shaking hands, I picked it up and read. Jenny, I've decided to take your advice and live my life. I'm still young, and I deserve to be happy. I've met someone who appreciates me for who I am. Since you're so concerned about the boys, you can raise them. You're an old maid anyway, so it's not like you have anything better to do. Sarah. I collapsed onto the sofa, the note crumpling in my fist. The boys watched me warily, fear and confusion in their eyes. I looked at their faces, these 2 boys who had been nothing but trouble since they arrived, but who were now just scared, abandoned children. My anger at Sarah was overwhelmed by a wave of protectiveness for her sons. With a heavy heart, I picked up the phone and called Robert. Robert, it's Sarah. She's gone. She left the boys here and took off with some guy she met. There was a long pause, then a deep sigh. I'll be right over. Robert arrived within the hour, his face a mix of anger and concern. When he saw Alex and Timmy, his expression softened. He knelt down and opened his arms, and the boys ran to him, finally letting out the tears they'd been holding back. Over the next few weeks, Robert and I worked together to create a stable environment for the boys. He filed for full custody, and I stood as a witness, recounting Sarah's neglectful behavior and eventual abandonment. The judge's decision was swift. Sarah was stripped of her parental rights. Robert became the boys' sole legal guardian. As the dust settled, I found myself in a new role, the fun aunt who actually got to be fun. Robert and I stayed in close contact, and I visited the boys often. Sometimes, I'd take them for weekends at my place, which was now blissfully peaceful and tidy again. The change in Alex and Timmy was remarkable. With Robert's patient guidance and consistent discipline, they transformed from wild, uncontrollable terrors into respectful, well-behaved young men. It wasn't always easy, there were plenty of bumps along the road, but the progress was undeniable. Years passed. Alex, always the dramatic one, discovered a passion for acting. At 15, he landed his first commercial gig. Before long, he was appearing in TV shows, his talent evident to everyone who saw him. I couldn't have been prouder. Then, out of the blue, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Jenny, it's Sarah. I nearly dropped the phone. Sarah, where are you? It's been years. I know. Look, I've been thinking. I want to come see Alex. You know, reconnect. I heard he's doing well in acting. That's great. I'm his mother. Surely I have some rights to what he's earning. And there it was. the real reason for her call. No, Sarah, I said firmly. You were legally stripped of your parental rights. You don't have any rights to Alex's earnings. That money is his, managed by Robert until he's of age. The line went quiet for a moment. Then, well, if that's how it is, I guess I don't need to see those kids after all. Goodbye, Jenny. I sat there for a long time, phone in hand, a mix of emotions swirling through me. Anger at Sarah's audacity. Sadness for the relationship my nephews would never have with their mother. But mostly, I felt relief. Relief that Alex and Timmy were safe, loved, and thriving despite everything. Life settled into a new normal. I threw myself into my work at the hospital, saving lives and making a difference. My own children, now adults themselves, visited often. And of course, there were regular movie nights with Alex and Timmy, who delighted in critiquing Alex's latest performances. Through it all, Buddy remained my constant companion. As I sit here now, scratching behind his ears and reflecting on the tumultuous journey that led us here, I can't help but smile. Life didn't turn out the way I expected, it rarely does. But sitting in my peaceful apartment, with the love of family, both blood and chosen, surrounding me, I realize I wouldn't have it any other way.